The gym genuinely saved my life, and that's something that I don't want to throw around and say lightly. What I'm about to share in this video today is something that even some of my closest friends have never known about me, but I feel like it's important out there for someone to hear my story and then hopefully gain some insight or some encouragement for what they're going through and understand how a mindset shift can go a long ways in helping you out of where you are. So first we have to start with the origin story. Growing up, I was always a very skinny kid. I played soccer, I played golf, I was always pretty good with books and math, and I never really saw the gym as something for me. Right? I played soccer recreationally and I got into it with some workout background. What I realized was that the sports that I cared about, so like running, jumping, basketball, I never really found all that much success in that. And for some reason, I thought something was fundamentally like flawed with me. And looking back now that I have a better grasp of like, genetics and things, some of that might be explainable, but it led me down a rabbit hole of doing a lot of research on how to optimize my performance. During that whole period, I was still getting actually very good at golf. And so when I was about to transition from eighth grade to ninth grade, which is when I was going to enter into freshman year of high school, one thing that I found that I could excel at pretty well. One of the requirements for making the varsity golf team was being able to run 2 miles in under 14 minutes. And looking back at my athletic class performance, I knew that was going to be a struggle for me. Even as a small guy, even with a background in soccer and endurance sport, I really knew that I was going to have to work hard for that. And so I began researching and running and dieting and all of the good stuff. And I became so obsessed with the process of just trying to optimize my mile time, optimize my body weight. At that point, that kind of also manifested itself in some body image issues. All the time, I felt like I wasn't lean enough. I wasn't lean enough. I was too fat to be a good runner, is what I was telling myself. And I remember waking up, running 4 miles. Then after those 4 miles, going to the golf course, coming back, eating legit a plate of broccoli. Remember, I would pride myself on how little food I would eat. And I would be so happy. Keep in mind, like, I'm trying to improve my 2 mile time. And so all of this just became completely obsessive and I lost sight of the goal. It eventually led into a severe downward spiral, of course. I was legitimately afraid of food. And turning into calories that would just add to my body fat. It was a very, very dark period of time. And when tryout day came, I actually did pretty well. You can imagine at that point I was so light and I'd done so much running, it was basically impossible for me not to do well at the event. But it didn't stop there. It didn't stop there. I kept up these habits and this eating and nutrition all throughout freshman year. And it got to the point to where I would sneak out. I would go to the bathroom during class and I would run the stairs, up and down stairs, just trying to get my heart rate up, trying to burn more calories throughout the day. And at its peak, I legitimately stood the entire day. And I honestly don't know how my teachers put up with this, but they made special accommodations for me to stand up during class the entire time because I was so afraid of sitting down because I had seen an article that said sitting is the new smoking. And I latched onto that with the very obsessive personality that I had developed during this whole period of time. And man, I remember being so cold all day long. I was so skinny. I had such little body fat and muscle mass on my body. Thermal regulation was very hard for me. And I remember going from sitting to standing when I did have to sit sometimes, I would nearly pass out just about every time. And at this point, my parents were obviously very concerned, and they basically tricked me one day into going to see a specialist. They got me in the car and they said, "Hey, we're going to see some family," and ended up being a trip to a doctor's office. And I remember being so mad. Number one, because I had to sit down for the car ride. And number two, because I felt like no one understood me. I felt like I was so righteous in what I was doing and that I had my life figured out and everyone else was doing it wrong. And I'm so thankful for that moment because I really don't know where I would be without that intervention. And I eventually, through a long period of counseling and some inpatient work, got myself into a position to where I could finally start eating normally again. And I became okay with dialing back my activity. This whole time, I still had this underlying body image issue. And I remember going into the doctor's office for the first time, and they measured my resting heart rate at 29 beats per minute. And according to the BMI index, I was severely underweight. And they said, to be honest, we don't know how much longer you would have had if you would have kept going down this path. And that was really kind of eye-opening and the kickstart that I needed to say, okay, maybe I don't have it right here. Maybe something is fundamentally wrong with the way I'm approaching things. And I remember my first day of nutrition counseling. They made me eat some of my mom's lasagna. And I remember fighting so hard and just a spoonful of lasagna. But that was the moment that started to break the cycle. And I eventually got to a point to where I could eat normally, normally. I could eat at least more of the foods that I thought were okay and then get my body weight back to a normal position. And it was a long transition, but I eventually got back to somewhat of a semblance of a normal life. But the actual underlying body image issues and the things driving those behaviors hadn't gone away. Those thoughts were still very, very much present. A couple years pass, and senior year rolls around, and I had a friend that introduced me to a local 24-hour fitness. And Cullen, if you're watching this, bro, thank you so much, man, because it really opened up my eyes to a whole new world. I realized that I could eat to actually get stronger and to build my body, and that there was a way of handling this exercise, this want for health and improving myself in a much more healthy and sustainable way. And from that moment on, man, I was hooked. I was very obsessed in a good way with the gym. And part of my obsession was actually finding balance, oddly enough. I became hyper vigilant on making sure I could stick to the routine. And so that meant actually not being at the extremes. And so if anyone out there is going through something similar, if you can relate to the body image issues, and I feel like it's really taboo for guys to talk about this nowadays. But man, if you're struggling, feel free to reach out. And trust me when I say this, it gets better. It does get better. I know in the moment it seems like it's a kind of never ending pit of despair and that you may not feel understood, but I get you, bro. And there's a lot of people out there going through the same thing. And so I want you to take the steps that you need to and understand that the people around you are trying to work out what's best for you and they love you, even if you don't want to hear what they have to say in the moment. So throughout that whole period that I was in the gym and working out, I was building a newfound self-confidence, both through my body image. I think it's actually a good thing to try and build your body. And also I gained some self-confidence through trying new things. Anyone who has stepped foot in the gym for the first time can understand that it's a little scary, especially when you see guys who are much more experienced around you and you're worried about what people are thinking, like, oh, what if I don't know how to do this exercise? And so overcoming that fear and getting into the gym and just learning the lifts and even asking some of the bigger guys, going up and talking to humans, right, can be such an empowering thing. And so I was building a lot of confidence that way as well. And this whole process, I found a whole new appreciation for exercise and food. It completely reframed the whole thing for me. I realized that these things were there to benefit my life and contribute to my quality of life rather than the other way around, where my life was built around building the quality of these things. So for me, I want everyone to experience what the gym has done for me. It is completely reframed how I view food, how I view social interactions, my confidence from day to day. And so finding the thing that works for you and is actually healthy for you is so crucial. And I want everyone to be able to experience that. Thank you for sitting here and listening to some of how the gym helped me out and bringing me out of a really dark place. And I hope some of you guys out there, if you're going through the same thing, that you can find some comfort in this video and you look back on this a year from now and you realize how far you've come and how much improvement you still have to make, because in reality, it's not about the end point. It's about the journey you go through to get there. That's what makes it all enjoyable. If you are someone out there who's struggling, know it gets better. Know you got this. And I will see you in that next video.